Hello class, Mr. Garino here. In this video we're going to style our website. And so we're going to Documents and then your website folder, and you should have 4 files there. The dog picture or some other type of picture if you used. Most people use the dog picture. Index.html, that's your home page of your website. Main.css, that's your cascading style sheets for your website. And then you should have a test.html file. And the reason why we have that is we did some testing and we learned how to do some stuff for HTML and CSS. But that's not really the website we want to make. So that's why I had to duplicate the file so that we can work on making the website with our index page. But then, if for any reason there's something you want to do that you did before in your test file, but you forgot how to do it because you only did it once, you can always go back to this, open it in Notepad, and go through it and say, okay, well, this is how we did that inline style sheet to override the main CSS. Oh, and then if we wanted to do an inline style, we could do things over here like this to even override what we did up here. Oh yeah, and this is how we do an H3 heading, and this is how we do a hyperlink, and this is how we put in a picture. Okay, so this is like your guide. So you keep that in your folder in case you have to refer back to it. Okay, but now what we're going to do is we're going to open this file, and of course I'm getting that Dreamweaver icon because I have that installed on my computer, but you guys are using Notepad, so if you got the Notepad icon you can just double click. If you don't, then you have to go the long way like me. Right click, open with, and Notepad. And this is what I had you put in to begin with, and we were just testing things out. So now we're actually going to delete that. Okay, and we're going to start off with a bunch of different CSS rules, and there are very many of them. Some are kind of popular or common that you use often, so those people tend to remember, but then other ones you have to look them up if you don't know what it is at some online resource. So one thing people like to do is if you put a star here and then a curly bracket and you hit enter and you tab over and then you put in a CSS rule, any type of CSS rule that's in the star, shall we say tag, colon, and then I'm putting 0px as in 0 pixels. So I'm setting the margins of my entire website to be 0 pixels. Okay, and then there's also this thing called padding. We'll go over these two things later, but this is just where most people start. And I'm setting that to 0 pixels. Why am I having a hard time saying 0? And then hit enter, and then tab over to here and close the curly brace. And that's how most people set it up. And the reason why we're doing that is just to tell the browser, hey, whatever type of default margins and paddings you have, I'm clearing them out. I'm going to use my own. Okay, then we'll go on to the next thing. And you don't always have to do all this, but I'm showing it to you anyway. We're going to say that all of our H1 headings are going to be a font, and you could choose whatever font you want, but our font's going to be bold, and it's going to be 20 pixels, and I'm going to use the font called Tahoma, just because that's what I wanted to use. Hit enter, close the curly brace. Very important. If you have an open, you have to have a close. If you don't close it, then whatever you have here for H1, the next thing you write is going to become part of H1. Also, you have to always make sure you close things with semicolons, or end things, I should say, with semicolons. And between the property and its value, you always have a regular colon. So 2 dots is a colon. A dot with a comma basically is a semicolon. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to style my H2. I don't know that I'll ever even use H3s and H4s, so I'm just going to do H1 and H2. If at some point on some page I do call out an H3 and it's not defined in my main.css, then it'll go by the browser default. So this time it's going to be bold. And now, of course, having the same font and making it bold is good, but it better not be the same font size because that's why it's an H2. So 14 pixels to Homa. And then close that curly brace. And you know what? Let's save as we go. So it's main.css, so we don't have to do any save as, just save. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do, if you remember, we have a section ID, or a section, and a nav. So you could actually style more than one thing at once by putting a comma in between. So my section and my nav, I'm going to display them as blocks. And what does that mean? Well, let me close this before I forget and save this again. And let's go and look. So the resource I always like to use, w3schools.com. And if I go over here and search, I could go through the menus here, but everybody likes to search. So I'm going to put display block. Display property, CSS3. Well, that's some other website, and I don't want to go there. So here we have W3 Schools display property. Okay. I always like to open in a new tab just in case that wasn't it. I don't have to go back. That's just my preference. So you can display things, seems like here, 4 different ways. None, inline block, or inline block. If we scroll down, we can see inline displays an element as an inline element. You can read these things. Displays it as a block element. It starts on a new line. It takes up the whole width of the block. Then here's the inline block. Displays an element inside the container. Element is formatted as an inline element, but you can apply height and width values. Okay, so there's all these different things of setting things up in different types of blocks on your website. Okay, so we're saying right now just block. Oh, and what's pretty good about this website, you can always go try it yourself. And it opens up a new tab, and here's your styling, and it shows you how it looks. So here's block, and here's inline block. You can see it looks a little different. The hello world over here would be next to it. And we're going to use an inline block in a little bit when we do our navigation. All right, but for now, let's close this out, and close this out, and go back to, close this out too. And go back to continue styling. These are some general things that people just kind of always do. Now, if you remember, we had, and maybe I should go back to that and show you, on our index.html, we do have a navigation and we have a section. And these things are kind of standard in HTML5. But the generic thing is just div. Divs, there can be very many of them. We're going to go and style our body. So we say body. And body is an HTML element like H1 and H2. So they're already defined. We know what they are. So we just say body, and it knows you're talking about the whole entire body. And I'm going to say text dash align. Now this is just going to be the default. It doesn't have to stay this way. Text align. And sometimes we use a space, sometimes we don't. I'm going to put a space. For some reason up here I didn't, but it's probably better if you do, just so you can see it better. So space, and then you say center. You could say left, you could say right. There's other things you could say as well. And then I want my background color. Background dash color to be, well, you could pick any kind of color you want. By default, the browser background color is white. Let's say blue. And let's close this and say save. And then go over here and open our index. And you see our background color is blue. And welcome to my website is in the center. And the reason why it's in the center is because we said the body which and I believe that was an H1 tag, was the only thing we really put on there. Oh, let me make this wider. Okay. So yeah, we have an H1 tag, says welcome to my website, and it is inside the body. It's also inside the main section, and it's also inside the big wrapper, right? So we have section, this main section, which is inside the div, which is the big wrapper. It's not inside the navigation. The navigation goes from here to here. So anything we style with the navigation buttons is not going to affect this over here. But any type of styling we apply to the main section or to the big wrapper will affect this. So remember, it cascades down. All right, so let me just minimize that. So over here we have background color blue and text align center. Later, if I go in and I say inside the big wrapper, make the text to the left, it's going to override this. And we should know about that now. But let's say we don't want that whole big blue background. You could also say, if you think it's too dark, you could say light blue. And there's a lot of colors you can choose, and a lot of them work. If you get some sort of really totally crazy color, it might not work. Let's save that and then open it again, and you'll see it's light blue. And now you can actually see the navigation buttons up there because they were the same blue before, so they were kind of hidden. And they're not actually buttons yet, they're just text, and we know that. So let's minimize this and say, okay, well, I don't like the dark blue and I don't like the light blue. I want it to be some other shade of blue. Well, I don't know how many different types of blues you can call out, but I do know you can do this. You can go and open Adobe Photoshop. And you can choose any blue you want. So right now it's obviously nothing up there. So if you just do File, New, and I guess since we're just picking a color, doesn't really matter what this says, just say OK. And you just get like a blank sheet of paper there. And we're going to fill it in, let's say, with our bucket tool. So if you click over here, this color chip, it brings up the color picker. And if you go here, and you scroll up and down and you click on blue, you'll notice all these numbers are changing. And there's all different ways you can call out colors with CSS. I kind of prefer this hexadecimal number in front of the hashtag. So let's say we want this light blue over here. Okay, the number for that is 707FEC. Don't worry about where that comes from, just copy it. And then go back to your main, and instead of light blue, you're going to put hashtag, and then paste it with Control V. Of course, I copied it with Control C, and then save this. And let me, minimize Photoshop, and go back to Index, and open that, and it should be that color. And actually, I'm not too good with, did I save this? I'm not too good with colors, so I don't even know if that's the color I picked. So let me do something different. Rather than blue, let's go crazy, and let's pick something like orange, because that's totally different than blue, and I'll know that it's changed with my color challenged eyes. So Control C to copy, choose cancel, minimize this, close this out, go over here, Control V to paste, make sure you save it, and then double click index, and there you go. That's obviously different. So with that other blue, I wasn't so sure it was different, so I wanted to make sure it worked. So obviously you can go and you can get any color you want to be your background color. And some people would say, well, oh my god, that orange all through the whole website, and I would go crazy. True. So you pick a nice color. That orange would be kind of crazy. You could also do a background picture. It doesn't have to be just a color, but maybe you want a background picture. So background, and it's not called picture, it's called image. That's the CSS property. So background image, and then we have an image already in our folder. It's called dog, so we'll just use that for now. and we're going to say URL, which stands for Universal Resource Locator, and then in parentheses you have to type dog, you have to type the file name, and you need the extension. That's why I had you put those extensions on in File Explorer. Okay, if you just put dog without the .jpg, it doesn't work. So File, Save, go back here, open this back up, and there's the picture of our dog all the way across the screen. So by default, it repeats all the way across. I can't scroll down because I don't have any more information on my page. So to get you to see what it looks like when you scroll down, we're going to go and edit this, which I think I already have open. And so right now we only have this on our page, so there's not enough content there for it to scroll down. So I could hit enter a bunch of times, but hopefully you know that doing that doesn't do anything because the browser ignores this white space. So I could hit enter a bunch of times, but that's not going to do what I want. But what I can put in is the empty tag, and I think I showed you this before, called BR. It stands for break, meaning break a line, meaning hit enter on the website. Now I could type that over and over again, but I want this page to be really long so that you could see what's happening with the dog image being repeated. So why don't I just copy this and then paste it, and then copy all 4 and paste it, and maybe copy all 8 and paste it and paste it and paste it and paste it and paste it. And then maybe over here we'll just put in a paragraph tag and say, this is a test that I will, so don't forget, delete later. So I emphasize will because I don't want you to leave that on your index page because that's silly and crazy. So we're going to File, Save, and then we'll open it. And now I can scroll down because down here is, this is a test I will delete later. Okay, so you can see as long as your page is how long that dog picture is going to go over and over and over again. And that gets kind of busy. I don't think you like it. I know I don't like it. So, well, what would we do to fix that? Well, we're going to leave that background image for now, and we're going to put in background dash repeat, and we're going to say no dash repeat. Make sure I spell things right, because if you don't spell it right, it doesn't work because it's not the right property, and the computer can't look at it and say, oh, I know you just misspelled repeat, I know what you mean. It doesn't do that. You misspell it, it doesn't work. So spelling counts. So let's do File, Save, and then reopen index. And so now we have just one picture of a dog. It does not repeat, but it also is just a picture of a dog up in the top left. That's hardly a background image. So let's go over here and say, well, wait, the background image of the dog doesn't really fill the screen, so what should we do? Well, we should get a picture that's much bigger. So I already have one saved. You should know how to go and get a big picture to fill your website. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it in here, and I've named it body-bg.png. So I can go over here and type that in, or I'll tell you what, so you don't make a typo, click on this. Some people like to click, wait a couple seconds, and then click again to get in there to rename it. That's kind of what I usually do. Other people love the right-click stuff, so right-click, rename, and then you can get in there to rename it. But you don't just copy this because you need the .png. Right now we got a .jpg. So if I just put the name and leave it .jpg, it's not going to work. So I have to copy this whole thing. So Control C, come over here, paste in everything that's inside the, paste over, I should say, everything inside the parentheses, and then say File, Save. And now if we go look at our, where'd it go? Over here, our index page, when I refresh it, you have this picture. And this picture is the picture I have on actually my Garinoland website. If you notice when I scroll down, that picture ends at some point because it's as big as my computer screen, 1920 by 1080. So it looks good on a page you don't have to scroll, but if you do have to scroll, It kind of goes down and then you see the orange. So the point to that is the reason why you put in a color and then an image, because the image can't be infinitely long. So once they pass the image, you get to see the color of the background. And this color right now looks obviously gross, but the color I used on my website, I found by doing the same thing in Photoshop, I found the color that kind of matched the sand. So let me put that in here. And I think this looks pretty good. So if I saved it, refresh it, so you can see how it goes from the picture and it just kind of fades into the color of the sand, close to the color of the sand. So if you like that effect, you can do that. There's also something else you can do. Since you know that most screen sizes are 1920 by 1080, or probably something a little smaller on some older people's computers, there are some that are actually bigger. If people have a 4K monitor, their resolution could be bigger than 1920 by 1080. And so in that case, what you would see on the edges as well as off the bottom would be this sandy color. But if you want to kind of target the 1920 by 1080, another property you could do so that when you scroll, you don't see all this whitish sandy color. The way you could do that is another property called background dash attachment, and you say fixed, which means it doesn't move with the page. So when you scroll the page, let me move that over. When you scroll the page, your picture doesn't move. So let's save this, your background picture I should say, and go back to our home page. Right now it does because I haven't resaved it, or I haven't refreshed it I should say. Let me refresh. And now when I scroll, you can see this going up and this then appearing, but my picture is stuck to the background. You don't ever get to see what's on the outside of it. Now that's for this size screen that we're using. If there's a bigger screen, even though it's stuck there, it can't really fill across the edges. Okay, so the scrolling up and down works, but if there's a bigger screen left and right, you're going to see that white sandy part on the outside. You can't make a picture work for everybody's screen size, you just can't. So you kind of do this little fading stuff like you could see on the edges of mine, just in case someone does have a bigger screen, it won't look so terrible. So you're targeting your audience, so to speak. Okay, so that's how I did it on my website. So that's the body. Now we're going to go and style the big wrapper. Now, H1s are built-in HTML elements. H2s are as well. The body is as well. You have to have a body tag. You don't have to have a big wrapper tag. So the way to link them is you can't just call out big wrapper. You can't just go like this, big underscore wrapper. And make sure you spell it the same way. Not only the spelling, but also the case, meaning, I think I still have that open somewhere, meaning it's big wrapper, all lowercase with an underscore, no uppercase. If you spell it wrong or you use a capital B, it doesn't work. It has to match exactly. So over here, I'm going to say big wrapper. In fact, sometimes what I do so I don't make a mistake is highlight this, Control C to copy, and then over here, Control V to paste. But how does the computer know what the big wrapper is? I mean, you just made that word up, or I just made that word up. So I'm going to move this up because I like it to be a little higher, as I told you before. Eye level, I guess. So the way you link it is you put a hashtag in front, and that says, hey, I'm linking this to a division on my HTML page, and this is going to be the styling of it. So hashtag in front. You don't have to do it for the body because everybody knows what we're talking about when we talk about body, when we're doing HTML and CSS. But the browsers don't know what a big wrapper is. So you put hashtag in front that says, hey, this is my word, basically is what you're saying. And we're going to say the width of this big wrapper is 960 pixels, px. So that kind of makes it go out halfway through the screen. We're going to have this nice little section where we're going to put our information. And we're going to put margin auto. Oops, auto. So the margins automatically adjust, and we'll learn more about margins in a little bit. We're also going to say text align, and some of this stuff may actually be like redundant or duplicated in some way because we already said a text align, but remember it cascades. And then the border, and you'll see what that is in a second. You might want a border, I kind of like this border, and I'll show you what it is. I'm going to say it's 5 pixels thick. It's solid because a border has to have a thickness, and also the type. And then what color? I don't know, I'll just call it blue. And then the border radius, you don't have to have a border radius, but I think it looks nice. A border radius of 3 pixels. That's like rounding the edge. And then close off the curly brace. Let's save this, and let's go back to our home page and refresh it. And so here's our border right here. Okay, so we set up a what you call it, a 960 wide division, and there's a border all the way around it. But notice, because I put inside my big wrapper that text line is to the left, now instead of these things being in the center, it got overridden and now moved everything to the left. So the body by default has stuff in the center, but the big wrapper has stuff to the left. Kind of almost silly, but just trying to illustrate how things get overridden, or overridden, I should say. Okay, now we're going to style our top line menu, and I might do that in kind of chunks. So let's go back, let's minimize this. Oh, and you could see over here there's like a little bit of a radius over there. It's not much. I don't know that it's like critical, but instead of being exactly sharp on the corner, you can see it's a little bit rounded. Just something I wanted to do. Okay, so let's go back to our main.css, and I'm going to put in a bunch of enters here because I like the stuff being up higher. I'll delete them later. So now that we have that big wrapper section, we're going to style our top line menu. So if you remember, we called it top underscore menu. You could go copy paste it, but that's a pretty easy thing to type. We're going to clear, so this is for margins and stuff again, clear both. We're going to say the background dash color is gray, and then the color is yellow. So when we just say color, sorry, semicolon on the end, when you say color, you're talking about the font color. Why they don't say font dash color like they say font dash other things and background dash color, I don't know. I didn't make the standard, but that's what they do. So when you don't say anything, you just say color, you're talking about the font color. And then let's close the curly brace and see if this has an effect. Always have to save it to see the effect. Okay, so we got our gray over here, and we do have yellow. We have yellow dots. We don't want the dots. We're going to get rid of them in a bit. Okay, so that's working. And now that's just the top menu. But the top menu has an unordered list. So we're going to say pound. By the way, old school hashtag is pound. Some people used to even call it the number sign. I know you guys call it the, younger people call it the hashtag. That's more common now. So hashtag menu, the unordered list of the menu. So we're not talking about the whole menu, we're just talking about the unordered list part of it. So this is how you break it down one step at a time. And that's going to be text align. So you can see we're going back and changing the text align of just a certain part now. Text align center. Let's save this and take a look. Okay, so now our text is back in the center, but of just the top line menu, not this stayed to the left. And again, these are preferences. You change it how you want, but I'm just showing you how you do it, not how you have to do it. Okay, then the next thing we're going to style is hashtag top menu, top underscore menu, the unordered list, and then what part of the unordered list? The list item. So remember we had those LIs for the list items? So we have to style those now. Styling a navigation bar takes a lot of effort, in case you hadn't noticed. Bring this up, I like things up higher. Okay, so the list item, tab over. Display, inline, and we looked at that on that W3 Schools website, so I'm not going to go over it again. Inline block. The list, tab it over first all the time. The list style is going to be none. Actually, let's leave that off for now. Okay, so when we go back and refresh our page, this right here, instead of being up and down, is going to be going across because we said inline block. So it stays inline and it blocks it across the big wrapper. Then the next thing we want to do is say list style, and like I said, there's a lot of these. I don't always remember exactly what everyone does, but I'm pretty sure list style means, let's have this closed. List style means the underlines go away, I think. Let's take a look. Or that might be the decoration. Okay, so the list style, I don't know. They don't remember what that does. So let's do the next one, but that's there for something. Actually, let's take a look. Why did I do that? List style. List style image property. Okay, I don't know if you saw it, but I didn't see it at first. But the little dots, list style, takes away the bullets, is what the list style does. I guess I obviously had forgot that because I was focused on this next one. Yeah, so I was focused on the text decoration, but that's actually something we're going to do in the next chunk, or the next property, the next tag. So let's go on. The next thing I want to do is my padding. And you can put in one number, it's the padding all the way around. If you put in 4 numbers, it starts top and then goes clockwise, right, bottom, left. So I'm putting 11 pixels for the top, 25 pixels for the bottom. Oops, not tab, space. 15 pixels, I'm sorry, 11 pixels for the top, 25 pixels for the right, 15 pixels for the bottom, and then 25 pixels for the left. And let's save that. And then look at our page. So it spread them out some. So I could have just put 25 pixels. 25 pixels, how many dots from top to bottom? So the difference between 15 and 11, why did I do that? Well, 11 is the top. I wanted a little bit more space on the bottom than the top. I mean, maybe that's just getting a little carried away. That could be kind of silly. But if I just put 11 for everything, and then I refresh this, you'll see how they get closer together. Okay, if I go and put, I don't know, 51 for everything, you'll see it gets spread out so much it can't fit. So I kind of liked it the other way. And so that to me looks pretty good. But you can play around with those numbers and do whatever you like. Okay, and actually, what is padding? Well, let's go over here and check this out. How about if we say box model? Because I think that shows you both. There we go. All right, so here's your content. The padding is everything outside the content, but inside your border. The margin is everything outside of the border. Okay, so if you have a border around something and you don't want your content to hit right up against the border, you put some padding. If you want some margin between the edge of your content and the edge of your page, or some space between the edge of your content and the edge of your page, you call it margin. Okay, if you have no border, they're kind of the same thing, right? Because you don't have a border. But if you do have a border, margin's on the outside, padding's on the inside. Okay, so that's why I'm saying padding, because I have this border here and I want the padding inside to be something. So that's why we did that padding, so that it doesn't go right up against the border on anywhere around there. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to add is we're going to change the font to bold, 14 pixels, and Tahoma. Being consistent with my font, I'm always using Tahoma. And then save that, and then refresh it. It makes it a little bit easier to see. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next section, which is, again, hashtag top underscore menu ULLIA. And we're styling the A part of our navigation bar. And if you remember, the A tags are the actual links. And before, in the menu, we put yellow for the font color, but also for the links, and it's the same thing right now. So this is kind of duplicated, but we're going to style it again and call it yellow. So maybe on the other one we could take that out later. We'll see later. And then here, what's important is text decoration. Text decoration, none. If you remember when we were looking at it, and don't forget the closing curly brace, very important. So we're going to save this, and then we're going to go back to our thing. So text decoration. So right now, first of all, they're blue, so they're not yellow. And the text decoration is underlined. And why aren't they yellow? Because, so what we might find out is this yellow over here, the top menu, we might actually go back and take this out because I don't think it's doing anything. Okay, so now that we have this yellow here, this is for the hyperlinks. And then also text decoration none is the underline, because in a paragraph, underline, you know it's a link, that the text is a link. But a navigation bar, you know that that's what they are. In fact, we're going to make them sort of look animated so that it's obviously the links that go from one page to the next. So let's save this if I hadn't already done it, and then refresh this page, and you'll see that they're not yellow and they're not underlined. Okay, and then the hand pops up when you roll over, and that gets the link. Of course, if we click, there's no page right now called that, so it's not going to go anywhere. The home one, they'll just stay there, so it flashes. And actually, you can see that when it flashes that white, what it's doing is it's painting it the white, or that sandy color, that I set up for the background, and then it's going over it with the picture. It's happening so fast that it just looks like a flash, but it actually is doing that. Okay, let's go on to our next thing, which now we're going to style. So you can see this navigation bars take a lot of effort to make them look good. We're going to style what happens when we hover over our navigation bar. So that's going to be hashtag top underscore menu UL LI and then a colon and then it's hover. Open the curly brace and we're going to say background color green. Oops, this should be in. It doesn't matter if it's indented, but it just helps you see where things are. So it's helpful. So we'll save this and we'll go back here and refresh. And now when we hover over the background of each one of those boxes, because remember we styled it to be inline block, okay, so each one has its own separate box, so you can see it changing to green. And here over here you can see the padding. Okay, I don't know that I like that because it changes to green before my mouse is over it, so I can click, nothing happens. You have to actually go over the text, but I'm just showing you what you can do. That's up to you. All right, then the next thing we can style is what happens when it's active. So hashtag top underscore menu, and I know this is getting long, but we're almost done. Unordered list, the list item, active, curly brace. Let's say we say background color, running out of colors here. Of course, you can always go to Photoshop and get that hexadecimal number, but we'll call it pink. Okay, so this is active. What does active mean? Well, let's go take a look. Okay, so right now I roll over, it's just green. If I click, no page, right? So let me go back. But it just now it goes to pink because going back and forth it refreshed. So anytime you click, you see pink, and then it goes pink. Okay. Again, I don't know if you like that or not. That's up to you. You could also say, go back to main. So that's when it's active. You could also style, if you wanted to style two things at once, you could come over here and say hashtag top menu A hover and let's say we say color white. I shouldn't say two things at once, but something else to do. Another, or let me do two of them at once is I guess what I was saying. Top menu A. So this is A means the hyperlink, right? Active. So what happens to the hyperlink when you hover, and what happens to the hyperlink when you click on it, meaning active, or active meaning when you click on it. And we'll say color, oh god, red. Running out of colors. And notice on this one I put the curly braces on the same line. You can do that if you like. So that's up to you. Alright, so let's save this and go here and see what happens. Go back. You can see when I roll over it changes green. When I go over the text it changes to white. And when I click, the box is pink but the text is red. Okay, so that's color white when you hover, right? So the A tag hover, color, make it white. When you click, make this red. Over here though, on the hover, the list item, the background color of the entire box is going green when you hover, but when you click it's pink. Okay, and then I think the last thing you could do, now that that's got the navigation, is, and here is going to be your main section. So this is the big wrapper, but you could also have the main section in there where you're putting all your content. So here we have big wrapper, here we have section ID, welcome to my website. You can also style the main section. So if you have something inside the big wrapper, like a paragraph or a heading, you can style it one way. And then inside the main section could be styled a slightly different way, if that's what you choose to do. So, because I think writing on this background picture is kind of hard to see, so I would go and do this. And I think, what was the, this is the color I used that shows up when my picture doesn't fill the screen. So I'm going to use that. In fact, let me just copy this. Control C to copy. Come down here, and I'm going to say hashtag main underscore section, curly brace, paste that in. That's my background color. And oops, and maybe I'll put some padding around everything so it doesn't go again right up against the border. But this time, because it's all over, I'm just going to say 15 pixels all the way around, so I only have to put in one number. If you want it different in left and right, then you could put in more numbers, but if you just put in one, it's all the way around. And then curly brace, and then save this, and then refresh this. And then you'll see that this is my main section where I'm going to type so you can see stuff better. It's got my picture over there. Some people don't like putting the color in here. They like seeing the words on the background picture. It depends on your background picture and how clearly you could read the text that's on top of it. There's ways to wash out the background picture. You could change the opacity so that it looks lighter, so that your text shows up more pronounced. Okay, and there you go. So if there's some things you wanted to change, this is like the main setup of your navigation, your main section, your wrapper, your body, and play around with these things. See, you know, how things look differently. Basically, we have colors. If you remember, I said I think this one we could probably get rid of. And let's see what happens. See? You don't see anything different, so that really wasn't necessary. Everything is still working the way it was supposed to. So that's how you do your CSS and make a website with 5 pages and the links. In the next video, I'll show you how to make pages, additional pages for your website. So this one just set up the styling. But what's nice now is, now that we have this and it's all styled, this main CSS, which we saved, and I got all these enters in here that I don't need, so I'll just hold down delete. So there you go. So here's our main CSS, our styling sheet for our whole entire website. Everything will look the same. We can override things with inline style sheets and also inline styles, but if we don't override anything, everything in our website should look good. It should look the same. And I made a little mistake here. This should be a semicolon here and a semicolon. Notice it worked even though there was no semicolon, because it closed the curly brace and there's only one property in here. If I had multiple properties and you forget the curly brace, then it messes up to the second one. But because there was only one inside the curly brace, I kind of got lucky. But of course, you should do things right. So semicolons after every property call out. And I'm just scrolling through. I don't think I missed any more. If I did, nope. Pretty good typing, I guess. Okay, so we'll resave this. So in the next video, I'll show you how to take your index.html, copy that, change it around and add some content, and you'll see that it looks just like the index.html page, just with different content. So that'll be the next video. Thank you. Bye.